St. Louis. Welcome once again to What Retirement Means to You with Jerry Means. He's the president and founder of the Means Financial Group. I'm Spike Spangle. Jerry, you look great today. How you feeling? How you doing?
I'm feeling great. How are you doing today, Spike?
Very good, very good. I think we've got a positive program here. What did you want to talk about today?
Well, today I thought it'd be nice to talk about ramping up your retirement. You know, if you're feeling like maybe you're a little bit behind and you're wondering what kind of things can I do to make sure I'm able to retire on time, or if you're already retired and you're worried that your retirement's not going the way that it should be, what are some of the things that you could do? I thought that would be a great topic for today.
Brilliant. I love it. I love it. Because there are a lot of folks who feel like they're behind. Life gets in the way, right? You know, we're bringing up the kids and then sending them off to college. You've got your career. You've got your savings. Maybe you're trying to build your own business. And the savings for retirement sometimes put on the back burner. Or you could be in retirement and wondering if you have enough. So let's get everybody out there feeling positive, gives them some to-dos, things they can think about. So if we're a few years away from retirement, what are maybe some action steps right away? Let's open up the show with things we can do. 55, 60, how can we build up that savings?
Well, I think number one, you need to have a conversation with your spouse and your advisor and talk about what you want your retirement to look like. You know, we call the show What Retirement Means to You, and it is kind of a play on my name, but it's really about what retirement means to you. You know, do you want to travel? How soon do you want to retire? What do you want that lifestyle to look like? Before we can plan for it, we have to understand where we're going.
Yeah. So, and of course, it all relies on the income, what you have and what you have saved. A lot of folks will take, of course, into our net worth, our home, but we need to think of assets that can create income for us in retirement. So for a lot of folks who are still working, it's that 401k or 403b, 457. When folks come into you, they're in their 50s, late 50s. Most people completely maxing out their 401ks, or some people leaving it shallow?
No, I find that a lot of people are leaving it shallow. You know, today, because of the catch-up provisions, if you're over age 50, you can contribute $30,500 to that qualified plan, whether it's a 401k, 403b. So there are what's called catch-up provisions once you're over age 50. And I just find that a lot of people aren't maxing those out. So if you can save a little bit more in those plans, get a little bit of tax deferral, get more matching, that's going to help accelerate that retirement plan.
And I've also heard of something. So, of course, the 401k, for the most part, folks are saving tax deferred. We're going to pay those taxes later. I heard you on another program talking about a Roth 401k. Can you explain a little bit more about what that is? Let's give that a little bit of time.
Well, when you put some money into a traditional 401k, you're getting a tax deduction that comes off of your income. So if you put that $30,000 in there and you make $200,000 a year, now you're only going to pay tax on $170,000. So it gives you that upfront tax savings. If you put the money into a Roth 401k, you're not getting that tax deduction today, but that money is going to grow tax deferred. And down the road, when you're ready to pull that money out, by the way, when tax rates are probably going to be higher, all of that growth on that Roth 401k is going to be tax-free.
Do you have a preference? Are you saying that folks should switch, consider both, talk to their CPA? Where does this come in?
Well, you definitely want to bring your accountant into the fold, but some of the things to consider is look at your tax bracket. We try to do what's called not bumping the bracket. So maybe you want to defer just enough to keep you going into that next bracket. Sometimes people are right at that threshold. So then anything, once you reach that threshold, then maybe start putting some money into the Roth and get that tax-free money down the road.
Okay. Now, from that 401k provider, or even the 403b, 457, your TSP, are you getting investment management advice? I mean, I know there's usually dials or calculators that'll show you on the website how you're doing, but are they giving you the kind of investment instruction you need?
It's very generic. You know, they have calculators that you can use. They have target date funds. And there are some 401ks where you can pay an extra fee and you'll have someone that you can call. I like to call it the 1-800-WHO-CARES number, though, because those people really don't know you. You know, they're just taking phone calls. They have a screen. They're reading off of a prompter. But, you know, when you sit down with a financial advisor that really knows you, your family, your goals, what you're wanting to do, they can give you, I feel like, more tailored advice than just a generic calculator online.
Now, wait a second, though. So if the money is over at a different plan, a different provider, people are still working, as a financial group yourself, do you mind sitting down with folks? Because it doesn't sound like they're going to be a client for a while.
Not all, because we believe in the holistic planning. We're helping people do some tax planning. We're looking at income planning. And, part of that, people have 401ks they can't move right now. They're still employed or they're under age 59 and a half. And they'll come in and say, Jerry, can you just look at my plan and see if there's anything more that I can be doing? I'm happy to sit down with you and talk with you about that. My goal is always to leave people better than I found them. So when they come into the office, whatever questions they have, I want to address those first.
We know that the tools, you're usually choosing your own funds inside these accounts, so you can give some direction there. You've often said about the target date funds, so you're usually picking a date when you're going to retire. Maybe we'll go a little bit further into those. I've also heard a new ruling, and I think it came out from Secure Act 2.0, the possibility, kicking the door open for annuities inside retirement accounts. Fan or not a fan?
Big fan. I think it's important to have the right type of annuities. There's different types of annuities that you have to understand, but the government is basically telling you that annuities are a good income planning vehicle, and that's why they're allowing those inside of these types of plans. They're encouraging that type of savings because insurance companies have been designing pension plans since the beginning of time. So it's a great tool. It's a great tool to use. So if they can allow that inside that plan, it's going to allow you to do a lot more before you retire instead of waiting until you're retired and saying, okay, now what do I do?
I think it's something that Americans have been clamoring for over the last few years, looking at their parents or grandparents who had those pension plans. So using that kind of insurance tool, that's what it is, an insurance contract, in fact, inside your own retirement plans to be able to save to create your own pension-like income. We can't call it a pension, but that's essentially what it is that if you use that, save in there for 10, 15 years. So that's probably what we're talking about is we've got viewers out there who are in their 50s, probably in their 60s. I guess we have to see what kind of annuity might be offered in there. So where do they start with this? Call their 401k provider first and see if that's something available?
Yeah, they can ask their HR person. They can call the custodian that houses that 401k, or they could sit down with an advisor like myself, a fiduciary advisor, that can make those phone calls with you. We know the questions to ask. So we can call the custodian, hey, does this allow for 401k contributions in the 401k? Does it allow for annuities inside this plan? What are all the investment options? What are the fees on this plan? We know the questions to ask, and then by taking that information, we can sit down and help you tailor that 401k the best that we can with what we have to work inside there.
All right, folks, get your retirement on track for you. You can do that by getting your own on-track retirement review. It is absolutely no cost to you. You can call the phone number right now down on the bottom of the screen, or you can open up your phone to the camera function and point it at this QR code. You click on it, it'll take you over to the website. You can schedule your appointment there. You can take a look at your retirement accounts, 401ks, 403bs, 457s, even that TSP. Or if you are your own private business owner, maybe your own SEP, IRA, how are you investing? Make sure that you're on the right track. Call the phone number right now. If you're feeling behind, you're not alone. More action steps, how to ramp up your retirement, right after this.
I was like most kids. I wanted to be, law enforcement or fireman or baseball player, of course, that sort of thing. Growing up, even at an early age, my grandfather was a big influence on me. He was kind of the monarch of the family that everyone went to, and if they had questions, they always went to my grandpa, and I was the oldest grandson. And I noticed that during the holidays, we would be at his house, and he had 2 living rooms, and one of the living rooms he always stayed in, and everyone else kind of gathered in the other room, and he was reading the Wall Street Journal and watching the stock market and taking a look at where things were and talking to me about politics. We just had a really good relationship, and I took an interest in investing. So he taught me how to read the Wall Street Journal when I was 13 years old. So if you can imagine, I went to school, I knew more about investing than most of my teachers did. I knew what bonds were, what equities were, how the market worked. I still wasn't planning on getting in that line of work. It just was interesting to me. It was kind of a bonding time with my grandfather. And then fast forward into my early 20s, I got a phone call from a financial advisor that worked with my grandfather, and he said, hey, we're looking to recruit young guys that might want to get into business, and your grandfather said to give you a call. And once they showed me what they did, I thought, this seems like it would be a good fit for me. And 25 years later, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary in the business, so it was the right move for me.
Welcome back to What Retirement Means to You with Jerry Means, president and founder of the Means Financial Group. I'm Spike Spangle. A lot of you might feel like you're behind in your retirement or don't know if you have enough in savings to keep the income flow going all the way through your retirement years. That's what today's show is about. When we're using those retirement accounts, do we just keep that there until our full retirement age? Is there anything else we can do, or do we want to start looking at outside tools?
Well, what people really need to understand is a 401k is really a simple design. You know, the custodian is going to allow you to have 20, 30, maybe 40 investment choices. There's a whole entire universe of investment products and tools out there outside of the 401k. So I always tell people, take advantage of the matching. But and you want to make those contributions and those catch-up contributions to build that up. But once you turn age 59 and a half, almost all 401ks allow for something called an in-service rollover or an in-service distribution. What this does is allow you to take all of the money inside that qualified plan, roll it over into an IRA. Now, inside that IRA, you can buy different stocks and bonds and mutual funds and exchange traded funds, and you can do strategies to help mitigate risk. You can buy annuities if your company doesn't, 401k doesn't offer annuities and you want to do some income planning. There's a lot of things that you can do outside of the 401k that you can't do within it. So take advantage of it until you reach that critical age. And the reason that they allow this is they know once you're age 59 and a half, I don't know why they don't just make it 60 and keep it simple. So crazy. But why not just make it 60 and say, okay, you're 5, 6, 7 years from retirement. We know you may need more tools than what's allowed inside the 401k. So we're going to give you this window where you can move money out. You know, and it doesn't hurt the employer. A lot of times people will come in and I'll tell them about this and they'll say, well, I don't want my employer to get upset with me. It doesn't affect the employer. A matter of fact, it helps the employer and the custodian meet their fiduciary duties because they realize that, you know, you may need to reduce that risk and mitigate risk and do some income planning when you're that close to retirement. So it's a great tool to use. And what I do is I just sit down with people when they come into our office and I do an inventory of assets and they have a 401k. If they're over age 59 and a half, I explain the rule to them. And then I ask them, would you like me to call with you and see if this plan allows it? And I know all the questions to ask. And the great thing is I can do it right there on the speakerphone so they hear both sides of the conversation. Now, the hardest part with that is just getting a human on the phone, right? You know, I spend a lot of time sitting on hold listening to elevator music, but once we get someone on the phone, I know what to ask, you know, and I can make that call relatively short and easy for the client.
So an inventory of everything that we're doing, including the life insurance, if we are going to start using outside tools, maybe even their own investment accounts. A lot of folks have started their own investment accounts on the outside. Playing with their own retirement dollars there. You want to also take a look at those, make sure they're doing okay. I think one thing that people like to do to try to ramp up for their retirement is get as close to debt-free as possible, which is oftentimes trying to load up, pay off that house as soon as possible. Is this a good thing? I don't want to say is it a bad thing? I mean, being debt-free is nice, but should we load up paying off the house those last few years just to call ourselves debt-free and not be putting as much as we could possibly into other investment tools? What do you think?
Well, I think that depends on their interest rate. You know, I have some people come in and say, Jerry, I only owe another $50,000, $70,000 on my house. Do you think I have that money in this account, this investment account? Should I just go ahead and pay that off? Or should I double my payments to pay it off sooner? Listen, there's nothing wrong with having your house paid for. You know, I always tell people there's two answers to that question. There's the financial planning answer and the emotional answer. The financial planning answer is if you have a really low mortgage, you're in the 3s, maybe even a 4, why not build up that retirement savings that you can turn into an income stream? But if you have a higher interest rate, go ahead and pay that debt down. Some people don't feel like they should pay the house off because they want to build that income plan. Other people want to pay it off because it just makes them feel warm and fuzzy inside. That's the emotional answer. So it's really hard to tell people whether they should do that or not. But I just tell them, you know, let's look at the interest rate first and start from there, and then talk about the emotional aspect of it and see which one makes sense for you.
Because there's different versions of debt. There's good debt, there's bad debt. The country is in bad debt. Trillions and trillions of dollars of debt. So credit card debt, though, and of course, high interest rate debt on, let's say, newer automobiles. Yeah, we want to try to be as debt-free as possible. But you've also said we've got to have assets that we can create income from. Paying off the house is great, but I don't think you can go take the floorboards or the drywall down to the grocery store and create income for ourselves in retirement.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely believe you mentioned the credit card debt, student loan debt's another one that we see, or even student loan debt for the kids, things like that. That you definitely want to pay down because it's usually higher interest rate, right? Usually in the teens or maybe higher. And so it's hard to earn that kind of guaranteed interest or returns consistently in the market. So why not go ahead and pay that debt down? But when you have that home mortgage that's really low, it's a little bit different situation. But yeah, I mean, I think it just makes perfect sense to build up enough money that somewhere down the road you can start putting into buckets and design your own income plan and how you're going to do the deaccumulation of your assets.
You've also shared a concept that one of the ways that we can build up, ramp up for our retirement is to get as tax efficient as possible. You've built a tool for it, but why would paying my taxes now make my retirement more efficient later?
Well, I think if you ask anyone if they think taxes are going to be higher or lower in the future, they say higher. And you mentioned the national debt, right? Somewhere down the line, we have to pay the piper. And they're going to do that by raising taxes. So sometimes it makes sense right now to pay the taxes at the rates where we know they're at versus where in the future when we're not sure and there's no certainty where they're going to be. So this tool helps you do that.
So most of the rates, most of the folks who probably come around your office are anywhere between 12, 22, 24, 28%, maybe upwards of 32%. That's where they are right now. But we know that by the end of the year, they could be setting or sunsetting, and they might go back up a little bit higher. They might stay in place. But some of the lowest tax brackets in our history, the mean taxes tool that you put together, it will what? It'll tell us how much we owe in taxes right now?
Yeah, it does some future projections for you. So you can take a look at that. It's really easy. You can punch in your information. It's free. There's no cost to use it. You can get your own report. So I just think people should take a look at it.
Yeah. So this meantaxes.com that's down on the bottom of the screen, I want our viewers to think, how much do you have saved in tax-deferred accounts? A few $100,000, $1 million, more. Put in what you have in tax-deferred accounts. Then what you think your tax bracket is going to be. It's going to show you in total how much you're going to have to pay in taxes on those accounts. You're not getting away with it. We've been saving into their tax-deferred for a very long time, so this tool will show you that. The thing is, would you rather pay taxes on that now in lower tax rates or possibly in the future? Now, again, none of us have that crystal ball, but you have an inkling of where we think tax rates might go in the next few years? Do we see them going up?
I think they're going to go up. I mean, that's just a personal opinion. Who knows what legislation is going to do or what the next administration is going to propose. But I think somewhere down the line, in the people that are watching's retirement, they're going to see an increase in taxes.
All right. So for our viewers, this is a free tool right down here. You can type that into your web browser, meantaxes.com, or again, you can use this QR code. Click on it when you open the camera function, and it's a few inputs: your name, your email address, what you have saved, and what you think your tax rate is going to be. So many Americans are discovering they're going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes on their retirement accounts. So when we find out what that bill will be, then call the phone number, come on in. Jerry will show us possibly how we can get you some tax-free lanes of income in retirement. More with Jerry Means when we get back right after this break.
We know the market is going to get worse from here. This is the biggest monthly decline in 10 years. People's 401ks took a major hit.
Well, my investments are tanking. My retirement isn't going as planned. I can't believe I let my kid talk me into buying crypto. I mean, what is that anyway?
This was the fourth worst contraction in history.
So how are you two doing?
Your financial future doesn't have to be uncertain. I'm Jerry Means with Means Financial Group. If you've amassed a nest egg, it's time for a financial advisor to help you reach your retirement goals. This is one of the greatest tax windows in history. Now is the time to take advantage of this tax discount while you can. All of our advisors are fiduciaries, specialize in retirement planning, tax mitigation, estate planning, and more. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your own complimentary portfolio review and tax analysis.
Welcome back. You're with Jerry Means, the president and founder of Means Financial Group. I'm Spike Spangle. We're talking about how we can help you ramp up your retirement. Now, we've talked about folks who are still working, but what about some of our viewers who are already retired? Is there anything that they can do right now?
Well, I think it's important for people to sit down. It never hurts to get a second opinion, right? If you go to the doctor and they tell you something's wrong and it's something really serious, it's common for people to get a second opinion. when people are shopping automobiles, they don't often buy it at the first dealership they go to, right? They want to shop around, kind of get an idea what's out there. I feel like it should be the same thing with a financial advisor. Your retirement should be the most important thing to you right now. So let's look at, okay, all the 5 aspects of your financial plan. We want to do is tax planning. We want to make sure that you have some type of written income strategy. We want to know what your budget is. Now, I hate to use the word budget because people feel kind of restrained when you use the word budget, but I like to tell people it can be empowering, because once we know how much you're spending in retirement, we're not trying to control how much you spend. We need to know how much you're going to spend so that we can properly plan for it. We need to make sure they're doing the best with their Social Security strategies. If they're not already drawing, when should they draw? Should both spouses draw? Should one spouse draw? Should they draw half of their there's so many different ways that Social Security can be planned out. And then we want to look at health insurance, including long-term care. What are you going to do to protect your retirement? Everyone thinks about the income plan, but if someone gets sick and they need to go into a nursing home, that can bankrupt a retirement plan. So we need to touch on all of those. And we also, I'll add in there the risk. We want to make sure they're not taking too much risk in their portfolio.
Right. A key point on that a way to actually build up your retirement is to make sure you're protecting it. Protecting the fact that we might need things like long-term care later on in the road. I think the new Fidelity updated study saying that we'll spend probably $395,000 out of pocket for healthcare costs in retirement. That doesn't include the long-term care costs. And I don't think you would think that long-term care costs, staying in a facility, is going to come down in the future, do you?
No, it's only going up. I mean, I've been doing this 26 years. I've seen in retirement plans, I've seen this blow up a retirement plan before. And I've seen the costs go from $3,000, $4,000 a month to now, depending on where you live, it can be $10,000, $20,000 a month.
Right.
Depends on the facility, but I've seen it triple and quadruple in monthly prices. So I can only assume that that's going to continue.
Yeah. You mentioned in the previous segment about interest rates. If you have a lower interest rate on a mortgage, maybe you shouldn't be in a hurry to pay it off. Certainly not taking out a lump sum from other investments just to call yourself debt-free in retirement if it's a low interest rate. We've seen interest rates now finally from 2020 start going up. And when we refinance a mortgage, if you had a 10% down to a 7%, you're putting more money in your pocket every month, meaning you have more spendability because your mortgage rate went down. Refinancing retirement tools, maybe you already have an income tool. If interest rates have gone up, are there better rates available even if you already have a tool?
Absolutely. And we call that refinancing your retirement. I've seen where people have had old bonds, old CDs, old annuities that are maybe paying 2-3%, and now they can go out and get 5%. So you're talking about doubling your interest or doubling potential retirement income coming off of those assets. So it always is a good idea to kind of review as those things are coming due, or maybe it makes sense to replace them before they come due, because look at the time that you're missing out. If while you're waiting for that thing to mature, you could be missing out on another 2 or 3% yield over the course of the next year, or interest rates could start to come back down and you kind of miss the boat. When interest rates started to rise in 2022, I was trying to put clients in shorter term instruments because every month we were getting a new rate increase. Well, now they've stopped and they've started to pull back on that a little bit. So I'm starting to put people in a longer term interest rate tool so that they can lock in that great rate for a longer period of time.
It seems to be a bit of a game that's been being played over the last couple of years. I know none of us have that crystal ball, but what do you think might happen throughout the rest of the next year or two with interest rates? Are they going to come back down again? I know you're talking about locking it in. What do you think might happen?
Well, I think we're going to see a couple more interest rate cuts this year. We'll see. It'll depend on the inflation rate. And I think that right now, like I said, it's a good time to shop around and see if you can lock in some higher rates while they're still there, because they are retracting or coming back. So it's a good time to just do a review, get a second opinion. And by the way, in my office, I have tools that help me do that make it really easy. So when a client comes in and they sit down with me at my conference table, I have a big screen TV. I can pull it up and show them, hey, this is a live feed, and we can punch in how much money they have invested, what their time horizon is, and it will pull up all of the different interest rates, and we can pick and choose what is appropriate for them. So it's kind of fun because it's interactive that I can do with the client when they're sitting at the table.
Fantastic. And going back to what we were saying in the previous segment, taxes are one way that you can become more efficient in retirement. I mean, we'd all like to have tax-free savings, but a lot of us have loaded money into tax-deferred accounts. That word, that phrase again, Roth conversion, it's one of the ways that if you are already retired, you said we can ramp up your retirement. Let's create a tax-free bucket because it doesn't get counted against your Social Security, RMDs. Explain that again, please.
So when you do a Roth conversion, something to keep in mind is you're basically just taking a qualified plan that's been tax deferred, you're paying the taxes on it, putting it into the Roth, which will still grow tax deferred, but come out tax free. When we're doing Roth conversions, we have tools for that as well. Well, we'll sit down and we'll look at, okay, what is your tax bracket right now? And how much can we convert without bumping you into the next bracket? So sometimes it might only be $2,000 or $3,000. Why not go ahead and do that? Sometimes it's $20,000. So it's not something you should maybe do a conversion all at once because it is taxed as ordinary income, but you might want to gradually do that every single year. So it's, again, a good reason to have a review, to sit down. And if your advisor out there is not talking to you about these issues, come in and sit down with us. It's no cost, there's no obligation. We call it the on-track review because we want to review your situation. We want to hear what concerns you have. We want to do an inventory of your assets and make sure that you are on track to retire when you want to, and that if you are retired, that you're going to stay retired.
One last way, considering ramping up our retirement, is maybe ramping it up for our even next generations. You said also considering your estate planning and making sure that that works efficiently for you. How does that fit into the conversation?
Well, one thing I ask people when they come in is, how important is legacy to you? And I get different answers. Some people say it's really important to me. Other people say, hey, if there's anything left, great. Or I want to spend the last dollar the day I pass away. You know what I mean? There's no right or wrong. It's just a personal preference. But for those who do want to leave a legacy, there's really smart strategies that we can use. We can use life insurance for wealth transfer because you're putting pennies in that buy dollars. And a lot of times we use that to cover the taxes on the qualified plans, right? Why pay 30 or 40% on the qualified plan when you can take a fraction of that, buy life insurance that will cover that 30 or 40% for your heirs? So a lot of different strategies that we can use.
Life insurance, taxes, investments, 401ks. You covered an entire world of ways to ramp up your retirement. Jerry Means, thank you very much.
Thanks, Spike.
And we'll tell our viewers exactly how you can get in touch. Call that phone number down on the bottom of the screen. We can do your on-track retirement review. Investments, fees, how much risk you're taking. We'll talk about estate planning, taxes, Social Security, and your health care choices. All of that wrapped up together. Call that phone number. Call it right now. Thank you for watching What Retirement Means to You. We'll be back next week.